Hello and welcome back to Hydroponics Daily, the podcast where we explore the science, systems and innovations in soilless cultivations. I'm your host, Dr. Russell Sharp, and today we'll be examining the Kratky Method of hydroponics. This is a passive hydroponic system that requires no pumps, no electricity, minimal intervention, and it's a non-circulatory system. It is not that popular in the UK. It is more popular in America, I think, especially on Reddit users. So not complete beginners, but sort of moderately good knowledged sort of amateurs use the Kratky method, it seems. It's not one that I've seen great results from, but it does have its proponents and people who swear by it. So we'll go through it and talk about it in more detail. So as I say, it's a non-circulatory hydroponic technique, and it was developed by Dr. Bernard Kratky, hence the name, at the University of Hawaii. And it provides plants with all the necessary nutrients and water without the use of any active components such as air pumps or timers. So it could be good in developing countries, anywhere where there's no access to electricity, things like that. So in essence, the plants are suspended above a nutrient solution in a static reservoir. As the plants grow and consume water, the level of the solution drops, creating an air gap. This gap allows roots to access oxygen and, if it's working correctly, effectively balance hydration and aeration without mechanical assistance. Now, if you're an experienced hydroponic grower, you will appreciate that there's a couple of issues there, not least that the electrical conductivity will increase as the water's evaporated. Those roots that are suspended might get droughts. There's no sort of aeration of the solution. There's no monitoring there. So there could be this could go seriously wrong if it goes wrong, and your plants could really suffer. So this is not like putting plants in a pot of soil. This is hydroponics, and it's maybe too simplistic, but it offers several distinct advantages. Simplicity being the obvious one. There are no moving parts. Once established, minimal maintenance. Very low cost, so it's a good way of getting into hydroponics. However, if you get burnt by getting it wrong on this one, you might not get further into hydroponics. So low cost, low budget, silent operation, so no pumps, means that it's suitable for indoor environments where the noises are concerned. So it's a bit like DWC or ebb and flood, but without anything supporting it. Its portability, so systems can be relocated due to their compact and self-contained nature, but how often do you really relocate a grow? Not very often. So the notable limitations: the method is best suited for fast-growing small to medium plants, such as lettuce, basil, and leafy greens. They can get through that nutrient solution quickly without, biofilms and algae building up and aeration becoming an issue. It's less effective for large fruiting crops like tomatoes, cucumbers, any sort of legal hemp, things like this. They require greater oxidation and nutrient replenishment. And in warmer climates, or just in the summer, stagnant water may lead to algal growth or root diseases if the system's not properly covered or sanitized. Especially if you're using tap water, you could get a rot set in. So how do you actually set it up? To construct a basic Kratky method, you basically follow these steps, which I'm going to explain, but I've never actually done it myself. So you select a container, such as a 20-litre bucket or a 5-gallon bucket, an opaque storage tote with a tight-fitting lid, so not something that's see-through, otherwise you will get algal build-up. Drill or cut a hole in the lid to fit a net cup or mesh pot, so a standard hydroponic net cup. I'd probably drill a hole, because if you cut a hole, the knife could go too far, and it's not very neat and tidy. Prepare a nutrient solution by mixing your water with your hydroponic nutrients, and make sure it's the right pH. So if you're using gold leaf, or as it's called in the UK, liquid gold, you don't need to worry about the pH. Just dilute it at, probably for this, I would use 2 milliliters per litre. You place your seedling grown in the grow media such as rock wool or clay pellets. They're ideal for these. It's a standard DWC or NFT grow media. Don't use cocoa, because it would get a bit too stagnant. And you want to be putting a seedling in, not a seed, into this situation, because that's going to leave the nutrient solution there for just too long before it actually gets growing. I'd put in a bigger seedling as possibly you could, so let your seedlings get quite big. Position the net cup so the base of the growing medium makes contact with the nutrient solution. If that doesn't happen, the roots won't grow down to it and it'll dry out. And then ensure the container is shielded from light to prevent algal growth. This can be done by painting it, covering it in foil, or just using an opaque container, as I mentioned earlier. And then allow the plant to grow undisturbed. As it consumes water, the air gap will form naturally. So no topping off is necessary if the initial volume of water supports full growth. So you don't need to keep on adding water and feeding this one. You just let it do its thing. So it's designed for one cycle, single harvest crops. It's not for crops that are going to be continually harvested, like tomatoes or cherries and things like that, a perennial crop. So what's it suited for? It would be suited for educational settings, getting students to set up a simple hydroponic system. Showing them root development would be really good without taking up complex systems. If you just want to show people root systems, it's a really good method. It's good for urban and indoor environments where space and power may be limited. So maybe on an allotment or a urban farm where you don't have an electricity account and set up. And it could be a backup or emergency growing system if you went off grid for a while, like the electricity went down. So it is often used in hobby gardens, school gardens, and so that's where the Kratky method comes into its own. How else could you optimize the Kratky method? You could use filtered or dechlorinated water to avoid root damage. Keep the container sealed against light to suppress algae, as we said. Start with leafy greens or herbs for best results. So don't be doing anything fancy. Don't be starting with wasabi. Even though wasabi is a plant that grows in the rivers, it doesn't like stagnant conditions, so I probably wouldn't do wasabi at all with this method. You can monitor the water temperature and consider using a thermometer if growing in a warm environment, making sure it doesn't get too hot. That's going to be a key issue. Okay, so the Kratky method does demonstrate that hydroponics doesn't have to be complex. It can be minimal, and it's a good way to sort of hone your skills before you go on to other expensive methods like DWC. You might look at sort of the alien systems and think, yeah, that looks really cool. And then you look at the price tag and you go, oh, can't really justify that at the moment. But a Kratky method might be a good way of intermediary way. You could always then sort of move into an NFT ebb and flood system. So you could then stick a small aquarium pump in the bucket and pull water out of there and on a timer so that the water was circulating. And so you could build in filters into that system. What else could you do? You could build in extra additions of water and nutrient solution and monitoring the pH and things like that. So you could take a Kratky method and system and take those buckets and develop an NFT recirculatory system from that. So you could go from Kratky to hybrid to full DWC, NFT, ebb and flood, whatever you want. So have a listen back to some of the previous episodes we talked about on ebb and flood or ebb and flow, NFT and DWC if you're interested in taking the Kratky method further. So that concludes today's episode of Hydroponics Daily on the Kratky method. If you are interested in further information on this and other hydroponics, please do get in touch with me. I'm Dr. Russell Sharp. You find me on any of the social medias for Gold Leaf or Liquid Gold or Utrema, which is our parent company. So thank you very much for listening. If you found this interesting, if you know a Kratky grower, then share this podcast with them. And if this podcast has been shared with you, you owe the person who shared it with you a pint of beer or whatever your favourite tipple is, their favourite tipple is. So get down to the pub. All right. Thanks very much for listening. Until tomorrow, goodbye. Stop the press. I've just been onto Wikipedia to find a picture for Kratky, and they've got 3 bottles of lettuce plants grown in mason jars using the Kratky method, and 2 of the 3 are bolted. The third one looks like it's about to bolt, and so yeah, not good because bolting means it's flowering and the lettuce would be insipid. All 3 of the lettuce plants look like they've got severe nitrogen deficiency. So if that's the best method, that's the best picture that could come up with for the Kratky method on Wikipedia. It's not something I would be promoting much, but yeah, check it out on Wikipedia. It doesn't look good. So maybe if you're a Kratky aficionado, maybe take that down and put one up that's better illustrates the Kratky method so you can promote it further. Okay, thank you very much.